Okay, today is we're talking about children's brain development, understanding and supporting children's growth. Sometimes we may not understand that it is very important to um, observe like what your child's uh, development, but it is, and it does come in stages. Some things are just it's common, and then other ones are actually just maybe a little bit different in each child. So today, that's what we're going to talk about, how it affects our children in different ways and at different stages.
Okay. Okay, our objective that we're going to talk about today we're going to understand basic processes for healthy brain development and know the sensitive periods our children brain development. We're also going to understand the children development stages relate to environmental factors, what affect their brain development at those stages. Name strategies we're gonna for supporting children's brain development. So these are the three things we're gonna cover tonight.
Okay, so the human brain, that is very important in the organ in our bodies. It actually supports the way we talk, our feelings, our body movements. So when you think about the human brain, you think about that controlling area of our bodies. So the control panel of the body is your brain. The lower level areas, you have your brain stem. So if you actually could take your finger and rub in the back, that brain stem goes all the way from the part right here, all the way down. And you may have experienced this where sometimes you actually may turn your head a little too fast, and you may feel like there's a little hurting part back there. That is because that brain stem goes all the way down. So you want to make sure that you don't twist your head too much. A lot of times if you have high blood pressure, you may actually feel like a thumping noise towards the back, because that brain stem, you need to always try to make sure that you protect it. So we have the brain stem, the midbrain, and then you have the higher level areas. So the higher level areas is your limbic system and your cerebral cortex.
Okay, we're gonna watch a short video about the architecture, how our brain function and works. So let's watch together, please. Okay, here we go.
A child's experiences during the earliest years of life have a lasting impact on the architecture of the developing brain. Genes provide the basic blueprint, but experiences shape the process that determines whether a child's brain will provide a strong or weak foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. During this important period of brain development, billions of brain cells called neurons send electrical signals to communicate with each other. These connections form circuits that become the basic foundation of brain architecture. Circuits and connections proliferate at a rapid pace and are reinforced through repeated use. Our experiences and environment dictate which circuits and connections get more use. Connections that are used more grow stronger and more permanent. Meanwhile, connections that are used less fade away through a normal process called pruning. Well-used circuits create lightning-fast pathways for neural signals to travel across regions of the brain. Simple circuits form first, providing a foundation for more complex circuits to build on later. Through this process, neurons form strong circuits and connections for emotions, motor skills, behavioral control, logic, language, and memory during the early critical period of development. With repeated use, these circuits become more efficient and connect to other areas of the brain more rapidly. While they originate in specific areas of the brain, the circuits are interconnected. You can't have one type of skill without the others to support it. Like building a house, everything is connected, and what comes first forms a foundation for all that comes later.
Okay, so the brain development, that video actually showed you that the brain is like a house. It has a blueprint. It has different sections that actually controls certain emotions, movements, thoughts, and feelings. So our brain development in early experiences are very important, okay? Especially when you're a child, you probably know that maybe something you experienced when you were little, you still remember it. It may be something good, it may be something unpleasant, but your thoughts, you still react to it the same way. So it's very important that those brain memories are associated with something positive. So brain's ability to form connections is more active during childhood. If you notice that when your children are small, it seems like they actually learn so much really quickly. And then a lot of times when they get a little bit older, you think, oh my gosh, what's going on? It doesn't seem like they respond or they're not picking up things as much. But what happens is during those early ages, you probably hear people say, oh, their brain is like a little sponge, because it actually is, your brain at that younger time, it actually is developing at a much higher rate. So how our brains develop determines on our thinking ability and the ability to regulate emotions. So certain things, some people may experience a little bit different. So it determines on how we do in our development.
Okay. The brain is built like a house, like my friend Deborah Moon, she explained, the genes are the blueprint. The environments that surround the child, I want you to think about it like it's a building material. So when you build a house, you want to use the best building material. So you need to provide for your child the best environment for the brain to grow healthy and strong. Okay, and it's very important because the strong material is going to make the brain balanced. And experience that's going to surround your child, if it's good experience, it's going to be like a carpenter who knows how to measure, who knows how to cut, who knows how to build that house to be strong. And he knows the steps of building the house. You cannot build the house before you do the foundation. So the stages the house is built, the stages the brain is built is very essential for the development of the brain of our children. Okay.
Okay, next slide. Okay, so sensitive periods. Our brain, because our emotions do originate from the reactions of life from our brain, we call those sensitive periods. That may be times that, sometimes some of our children may go through certain trauma. It could be a death for a loved one, or maybe like a hurricane or a war or something like that. So it can be things that actually is kind of traumatic to that child. And so with it being traumatic, it actually alters the way that they think. I actually have experienced having clients in a different profession, and they would say that it seems like, especially with younger children, that it's like you have your brain is just having all these open doors. It's just a lot of open doors, and when you're that young, sometimes you don't understand what is going on. And also, which is very interesting about the brain, in some, as we call sensitive periods or traumatic periods, it will actually shut down certain parts. If you ever know people that say, I just can't remember, maybe something had happened traumatic in their life, and they're really telling you the truth. Sometimes the brain will guard itself, and so it will actually kind of shut down at that point. So times when the brain is more flexible and able to be molded is in those younger years. Brain must get enough proper development. So there are some things that all of us need. We need to have, be in safe environments. We need to be able to rely on adults in our lives when we're younger. Shelter, positive affirmation. So all of those are important in our brain development. And especially within that, like that first 3 years of life, sometimes we'll say even that first 8 years of life, because that is the time when your brain is developing at a more rapid pace, and you absorb more.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moore. Okay, toxic in the brain. What does that mean? Okay, toxic in the brain, different parts of the brain develop different times. Important for children to receive a proper input in order to develop to their brain full potential. Positive experiences matters to your kids, okay? Negative experiences harm the development of the brain, like abuse, neglect, harm the development of the child brain. It's just like a natural disaster, okay? The natural disaster caused damage to the structure of the house. So as well, the neglect, the abuse, harm the development of the brain of the child, okay?
Okay, so toxic stress or adverse child experience. That is what we call in acronyms ACE. So if you ever hear ACE, that's what it means. Adverse childhood experiences, which we say, again, it may be abuse, neglect, household dysfunction. It may be even maybe in a situation when they're early childhood, maybe it's bullying or hearing negative things said to them. So ACE are linked to negative outcomes for adult health and behavior. So in many cases, say some of our younger children do maybe not get a chance to get the help that they need or be able to go to a counselor or a therapist, it actually does have adverse effects on how they are when they're an adult. So it's better when they can get help or be able to have positive adult role models in their life to change that around. And that is the what I want to say, the nice thing, the hope is that even though these happen in a child's life, it can be turned around. So a higher number of ACEs is linked to a greater chance for negative outcomes. So the sooner a younger child or at any age, if the younger they are and you can have that support group around them who would be there to make sure that they have more positive periods versus negative periods, it's really helpful because that child begins to learn how to respond in a more positive way. They also learn to what we call be more resilient, faster.
Okay. Okay, there's stages for the brain development. So it starts when the mom is having becoming pregnant, and it's the first 16 days after conceptions, the child already 16 to 22 days, the child already can feel and can hear, I can see in the baby's mommy's belly, and is potential for neural tube defect. What does that mean? That means, let's say the mom is pregnant, but she doesn't know that she's pregnant, and she does excessive alcohol drinking or negative environment. So that will affect the neural tube defect, which doesn't develop properly or as it should be, or as strong as it could be, okay? Infant brain at risk of harm from the environment, Also, the child is sensitive. Like, have you ever seen, like, if you, like when the mom is pregnant and there is a noise outside or there is a certain environment, the baby moves in the belly, So that means the child is aware of the environment surrounding him or her. And as the baby grow and grow and grow, those senses and responses to the environment outside increasing little by little, okay?
Okay. So just piggybacking off what Ms. Ferriol said, it's very important for a lot of parents, mothers or the family to make sure that even though if the child is still, within the mom's abdomen, you could read to your child, you could play do music, because they do respond and they do listen, and even talking positively, because when they can recognize those voices once they're born. It's amazing how the human brain develops. So just remember that is that try to keep that positive environment. So help build a better brain prenatal period. Pregnant women should eat a healthy, balanced diet. Ensure you're getting enough folic acid. During that time, it's not really recommended to drink alcohol or smoke cigarettes. Not allow others to smoke around you, because you probably heard about secondhand smoke. Practice strict hygienes and practice stress management techniques, because all of that affects the baby. So some of you that maybe have more than one child, you're probably like, okay, my child acts like this, and you probably think, okay, how was I during that pregnancy time or during that pregnancy period? So you may, in some cases, have one child that's more emotional during that time. Or you may have one child that's a little standoffish, and that's okay. Sometimes our emotions during pregnancy, it plays an important role, but it's not just the mother's responsibility. The whole family. So all the members in the family can participate in making sure that it's a successful prenatal period.
So the brain development at infancy period, At birth, a baby can recognize his mother's voice. You know, we can, because they develop the hearing at early stage. Rapid development of mother's skills. Babies' ability to recognize familiar people and objects increases around 3 months. Infants are able to learn any languages. So from reading this, you know that their motor skills, you see the child first rolling over, they're reaching to object. If you lay them on their belly in their crib, they're trying to push themselves up, like they're doing push-ups, you know. So all these are motor skills that child develop at earliest at infancy, you know, and all of that increase after 3 months. And to learn a language, it's very easy for an infant to learn a language if the moms and the dad and the family practice both languages at a younger age. And he will learn, she and he will learn it and will master it. And so that's something good to know, you know, because those neurons are very active. Remember, like the child act and the parent responds, you know. So as long as there is a lot of interaction and attention and communication and caring between the child and the parents and the environment around him, the child is willing and capable to learn more and more.
So help build a better brain in infancy. Respond to baby's cues. And that is one that I think a lot of mothers will remember, or dads, like at the beginning when you're talking with your baby, you notice that they're actually looking at you. They're really paying attention to you. And then when they start getting a little bit older, you'll notice that they're doing the little coo and you know, a lot of mothers, we cry because we think that's so cute. But when they first start that coo and the little cooing, it's actually that their language from their brain developing is actually beginning to develop their language. So at first they cannot, you know, speak like we can, but they'll start off with the cooing. And you notice you would go back and forth with them and it would sound like they're actually talking. The older they get, they'll get a little bit older and they'll start doing that rhythm, you know, it's that up and down rhythm. So you will hear that until eventually they do start trying to mimic the sounds that you make during the time that you have been talking to them. So it is important to talk with your children. A lot of times we'll say, oh, they're just babies. We don't have to talk with them. Oh, they're little, they don't understand. It is so important to talk with your babies. It's so important to talk with your young ones because they are listening. They may not understand or comprehend everything, but they are listening. Nurture your baby. And that means nurture your sons just as much as your daughters, because everyone needs that nurturing, okay? That is one of those needs that all of us needs to have, okay? Expose your baby to language. Ms. Ferriol was talking about exposing your baby to language. If you notice with younger children, they actually can pick up a language really, really fast. And sometimes as older, you know, maybe an older person, it's a little bit harder. And I'll tell you the reason why. When they're small, their brains are still developing, so they will pick up a lot of languages. I actually knew a mother, she spoke 7 languages, and her child who was in kindergarten spoke 5. And it was always so amazing. He picked up every one of them. So what happened, especially in bilingual families, you'll notice that the child may speak their family language, and then they'll mix it with their English language. And you're just like, why are they doing that? Because at that beginning of the time, their brain will give them whatever word comes up first. When they start getting a little older, their brain will show them how to separate the languages. And another tidbit, the more languages you know, if you learn another language, it's even easier to learn. So you want to nurture your baby. Make sure you do that, have those positive moments with them. Like I say, expose babies to languages. Expose babies to different cultures because they're learning. Keep babies safe from injury as much as possible, okay? A lot of times babies can fall. Some things it can be preventive, but we have to understand babies, especially in infancy, the brain is not developed, is not completely closed yet. So any type of shaking or hard bumps can actually maneuver some of the brain's, the brain development. So just make sure to your best ability, try to keep them safe. Give babies opportunities to explore. They are watching, they're looking around. If you notice, babies love to look around because they're actually exploring what's going on. So sometimes the cutest thing is to watch a baby when they learn, oh my gosh, I got a hand. Or, oh my gosh, there's my foot. And they're very flexible too. We wish we could be as flexible as the babies because they can lift that foot up to the mouth. So, but all of that is learning. It's part of their new development.
Thank you. So serve and return. The child always act, and we call that serve. And the parents always respond to whatever the child act. And so we call that returns. So it's serve and return create a neural connection between sound and objects, which is enable the child to learn and behave, learn things and develop his behavior techniques. So let's watch this video together, please.
The key to forming strong brain architecture is what's known as serve and return interaction with adults. In this developmental game, new neural connections form in the brain as young children instinctively serve through babbling, facial expressions, and gestures. And adults return the serve, responding in a very directed, meaningful way. It starts very early in life, when a baby coos and the adult interacts and directs the baby's attention to a face or hand. This interaction forms the foundation of brain architecture upon which all future development will be built. It helps create neural connections between all the different areas of the brain, building the emotional and cognitive skills children need in life. For example, here's how it works for literacy and language skills. When the baby sees an object, the adult says its name. This makes connections in the baby's brain between particular sounds and their corresponding objects. Later, adults show young children that those objects and sounds can also be represented by marks on a page. With continued support from adults, children then learn how to decipher writing and eventually to write themselves. Each stage builds on what came before. Ensuring that children have adult caregivers who consistently engage in serve and return interaction, beginning in infancy, builds a foundation in the brain for all the learning, behavior, and health that follow.
Okay, so again, it's a serve and return. Major contributor to the brain development. A child acts or serves, and the parent responds and returns. Uh, for example, a baby cries and a parent picks him up. So he realizes, because you have to think about this too. Babies are at that point where they can't like verbally talk, so they have to use certain ways to get your attention. So if they're wet, you know, a lot of times parents know, okay, that's what they have to have their diaper changed, or they'll do a different response. When they get a little older, toddlers make maybe funny faces and parents will laugh. So they like, wait a minute, they can't put everything together, but they're like, okay, so if I make this particular face, my parents' response is laughing. So parents is responsive to child's needs, okay? And the child knows this. So your reaction to certain situations or behavior is very important to them. If they do one thing and the reaction from a parent is a positive reaction, then in their brain, that's what they receive. Okay, that's a positive reaction. If maybe something else goes on and they get another type of reaction, maybe not as pleasant, they're like, oh, okay, if that happens, this other reaction occurs. So, and it's just like us. Probably now, there's probably certain ways that you react to certain situations, which was probably the way you remember it as a child.
Okay, so brain development for toddlers. Your toddlers learning, they learn to communicate with words and gestures. Like when they are at that age, like 2 years old, or like 18 months to 2 years old, you see them like they say, oh, they can say milk or pick up a book or something like short things, and they can understand more than they can say. They understand, but they cannot really fully express. But the parents, like I know my daughter, she would emphasize for her kids to say the whole sentence. She would say the sentence and she will, yeah, like help the child to develop to say full sentence. And this is really work. I didn't try it with my kids, but my kids tried with theirs. I do have 6 grandkids. And so it's always you have to work with your child. This interaction between you and the child is so important. You cannot ignore the child and expect the child to be learning, you know, because you're not engaging with your baby, you know, you're not teaching them to understand you. You're not teaching them like, they learn from your expression, from your language, from your smile, from the words you're saying. Can follow simple instruction. Children, when they are toddlers, they can follow simple instruction, but their brain is not developed. So if you tell them don't go to the street, but if they see maybe a little cat or something, they will go to the street because they don't have full control. So our job is to protect them, just like Ms. Deborah Moon said earlier. They don't have that impulse of control. So it's, you know, we have to be the parent always, carry them through that period, you know, while their brain is developing and protecting them for safety. Lack of, they always pretend like playing, lack skills to describe their emotion. They lack skills to describe their emotion and needs. That's why sometimes they cry, That mean maybe they have a wet diaper or something, you know, and that's how they understand, you know, like if they cry and you change their diaper, they know, okay, I'm communicating with mom or, you know, or dad. But if you don't change the diaper, you're stopping that communication, you know. So little by little, we have to carry our children slowly till the brain developed, and slowly by the kids acting and us like response to their needs. That's when kids needs are met, and they develop, they learn, and their behavior, they learn the behavior, and they learn what's going on. Okay.
Okay, so it help build a better brain for toddlers. Okay. Let's see if I can click that. Okay, help it build a better brain. So we think, okay, can the brain change? And years ago, they thought maybe the brain couldn't change, you know, this is just the way it's gonna be. But more and more, year after year, they're finding out that, yes, the brain can change. It just needs to have a more positive affirmations, experiences. So with toddlers, learn the toddler's language, you know, when they're younger. And I know that this says toddlers, but this can even be middle school children, high school kids. Kind of learn that your child's language. How do they react? And you'll notice that a lot of times, if you have more than one child, every one of your children act in a different way. So what you can say maybe to one child, because that's their personality, you may do different with another child because you learn their personalities. So I know it says toddlers, but in cases with our, you know, your middle schooler or your high schooler, it works in the same manner. You need to learn, you know, their language or how they respond to things. Expand a toddler's language. We can even say with that, expand everybody's language. You're always, I use the phrase, you live, you learn, you grow. Every day you're learning something new. Every day you're learning something new. So with the very young ones, because we know that their brain is developing at a faster rate, you want to expose them to new words, you know, and they're listening. You could say, you know, this is a floor. This is the pavement outside. So while you're just doing everyday things, talking with them and saying, oh, this is this and this is that, because they actually are learning and they'll remember. Give them choices. This doesn't mean you're giving up your control, but give them choices, because that brain is developing and it's going to mature. You want them to make good choices. Now, again, when they're smaller, sometimes you have to make certain choices for them. But if it's a case where there's no danger to themselves or someone else, like maybe a shirt. Okay, there's 2 shirts. Which one do you want to wear today? Something just simple like that. You can say, okay, this is the white shirt, this is the red shirt, because you're adding to their vocabulary. And they may respond to you, oh, red, white, okay. So make their learning experiences a teachable moment, okay? Read books, you know, let me go back. Allow free time for play. Sometimes we are so busy going, that we don't take time to just have free time. It's good to, you know, keep your children and even ourselves busy. But if it gets to a point where you're so busy that you're not taking the time just to sit and breathe, always take that free time. Sometimes they'll call it leisure time. Read books. It is so important. And nowadays, books not only come in hard copies, you can read books from your computer. Most of our schools, if you click on the websites under library, there will be books. They call ebooks, and you can click on there and you can read those books to your children when they're younger. Even when they're older, you think that maybe an older child wouldn't want to read with you, but there's that part that still want to do it. So you could, have a little book club and reading the same book, and you can read to each other. Child-proof, try to make, like I said, a safe environment for them. Know what they're looking at, know what they're being exposed to. Sometimes having them look at a lot of traumatic things on the television is not really good for them, because sometimes it's just all negative things, and they don't need to be exposed to it every single day. So just kind of know what they're doing, what they're looking at, what they're hearing. Acknowledge their feelings. That is so important, to acknowledge their feelings. So if they come to you and say, oh, I'm afraid about this, I'm afraid about that, the response may be, oh, that's nothing. For an adult, maybe it may not be nothing, but for them at that time, that's a big deal to them. So make sure that you listen to them, any other adults, because also that's a role model, because when they get older, they learn to listen to others too. So acknowledge feelings, validate feelings, develop routines for toddlers. They get used to it. There's kind of a certain time of day I need to take maybe a nap or go to sleep, or a certain time to eat. Now, not so, what I want to say, so strict that you can't change it during the day or something comes up, but they get used to getting into a routine. Okay, so that's very important too.
So brain development at a preschooler age, they're becoming more independent. Like, I want to do it myself. They acquire skills, and they want to do everything by themselves. Notice differences and similarity. Like when they start preschool, they realize the difference between boys and girls. A lot of kids, that's why they say reading stories while you are pregnant with your child, read to your child. And a lot of kids, like when they are born and the mom read the story again to them, they recognize that story. And there is a fact to that. So, and in general, like for preschoolers, when you read the story for them, they love it. They love the color. They love the pictures, and they remember part of it, and it's up to the mom and the dad or the caregiver, whoever working with a child, is to make it come to life and make it fun for them, because kids love to have fun. Make it like it's a game. It's you just having good time together. Kids like preschool, I love to color, So we do Brainy Babies with 2 years old, and we do Jumpstart with 3 years old. And my students, they love to color. They even go on the board, and they color, and they, I let them explore. It's healthy for them. It's just like expressing their opinion, is expressing how they feel. And may be able to follow multiple step instructions. But they can do that, but remember, their impulses control is still developing. They're not there right there. So so you always have to kind of, even if you give them a multi-step instruction, don't leave them alone. Always be there to follow through with them and protect them. And little by little, they will, you know, grow better and better and stronger, and they understand and they learn. Learning ability increases, you know. Plays pretend, so they use their imagination. Children have a big imagination. And that is very important for their growth and for brain development. So you that's something you need. We always say, listen to your kids and play with your kids, have fun with your kids. That is so important. You know, I can't emphasize how important that is for the child. Okay, you wanna have those kind of memories, have fun with them, because when you have fun with them, they love you and they listen to you, and you build that special relationship. Okay, and that's you know, it's very good to communicate with the child at early age, so when they grow up, that connection grow and grow, and you keep communicating even though you know, they are big, whatever, you know. So it's a very good to have good communication and good relationship with your kids. Always listen to them, be patient with them. And like my friend, Miss Debra Moon said, whatever they come to you with anything, don't think it's something small. Take the time to listen to them and talk about it. And don't judge them, but whatever happened, you know, they because they are curious at this age. Okay, don't you know, be there with them, you know, and support them. Yeah, that's it.
So again, we want to emphasize that building that imagination is again very important. Sometimes that imagination of wanting to be a doctor actually sometime happens. I know a young lady, she always, since she was a little girl, always wanted to be a doctor. And as of last year, that's exactly what she became. She became a doctor. So never put like limits on their imagination, because those imagination, they come into reality sometime. So help build a better brain for preschoolers. Read to preschoolers. Read to any of your children. I know we're emphasizing on some of the younger ones, but reading to any of your children is important. Provide preschoolers with opportunities to play with other children. Okay, be consistent when disciplining preschoolers. Explain why. My mother was always good about that. If you know, if she had to discipline us, and I'm not saying always, you know, with a hand, but she always told us why. She was a teacher, so if something went on, she would always say, okay, this is why you may have to be, you know, you missed something. Okay, because of this action, mom wants you to know why this is going on. Because you have to think about a preschooler, they're just still developing. So they have a lot of impulses because that's how their brain is. So if you're disciplining them and they may look at you like this and like, well, what happened? So always make sure that you tell them why you're doing something. Okay. Guide preschoolers through problem solving. That is so important even at jobs now. Sometimes it's not always the degrees or which is important or the experience, but a lot of times on applications over the years, they ask, let me see how that person is when it comes to problem solving. So a lot of times when they get a little older, you may say, okay, this happened. Now you tell me, what would you do in that case? And you'd be surprised that, the older children get, they can start thinking through, okay, what would I do in this case? Or what would I do differently? Okay, so yeah.
Screen time. Parents need to watch with their children and reteach contents. Avoid screen time for children less than 18 to 24 months. Limit screen time to 1 hour for older children. Choose quality programming. Turn off TV and other screens when not in use. Keep screens out of bedrooms and off mealtime. The research says that excessive screen time has been linked to overweight and obesity, problem with sleep, and delay in brain development. So that's another reason why parents and caregiver, might think about limit the screen time with their kids. And I want to mention something about Ms. Green was saying, Ms. Moon was saying that every time the child behave in certain way, we need to take the situation and turn it to a learning experience for our children. And whenever the child has a problem, try not to solve the problem. Like Ms. Moon said, ask him what is the best way to do that, because that's how we build leaders, and our kids learn how to make a small decision now while they are little, and while they grow, they learn how to make bigger decisions and be the leaders in the future.
Okay, so brain development in middle childhood, okay? It starts to, when we think about it, it starts to think about the future. Our kids get a little bit older, they start asking questions. They can start thinking a little more about, okay, what's gonna go on next week or maybe next year, or what's gonna go on during the holidays. They get a little bit older, middle school and things like that. They start thinking, okay, what am I going to do in my life? And so that's why it's so important to have them explore things. They're able to focus more on others and less on themselves. When your child was little, sometimes it was just me, and that is not that's just part of their of development. When they're little like that, that's their world. It's just the me world. The more that they learn, it's more than just me in the world. There's other people, there's family and friends and other people that may not live in my house. So they learn that, and we just need to give them those opportunities to know, okay, it's okay maybe to share. It's okay to do certain things. Increase attention span. You can't expect a 2-year-old to sit as long as maybe an 8-year-old. So knowing the age and knowing how long they're, you know, they're capable of doing things is really important. And become even more dependent. So some of the things that you did when they were little, you probably did everything. Each year goes by, you notice, oh, okay, they can do this. Okay, they can do that. And you can kind of step back a little bit and let them be more independent.
Help build a better brain for middle childhood. Recognize child's accomplishment. When a child does something good, give them a positive feedback. Let them know that this is the right thing to do, you know, acknowledge it, you know. We all need that kind of attention. We all enjoy that kind of attention. So they can, if they do something good and you encourage them, you know, they're gonna, they feel good about it. So they're gonna keep doing good things. Have a child help with household chores. Why? Because it helps your child develop a critical thinking skills. You know, those chores around the house, you know, whatever it was, it depends on their ages. You know, that helps your child thinking ability, and help a child think through consequences and action. Just like we said before, when a child does something, you know, talk it over, listen to them, explain to them why this is not right to do, and it might hurt somebody or something. You know, explain to them, let them understand, so their brain can develop and to do better choices. Okay, become involved at child school and activity. Very important for the child. You know, the children who parents involved in the school, they have higher rate of going to college and succeed in life. Have a clear family rules and explain the reasons for them. You know, don't just set the rules, you know. The communication should be a big part of it, you know. Like, we are a family, we help each other, and assign, you know, and whatever the rules are, you know, everybody abide by it. You know, it's not for the kids and not the parents, so it has to be for everybody, so the child doesn't feel like you know, feel like he's part of the whole family, and there is respect there. Okay. Next will be,
so the brain development of teenagers. Woo, we get to the very, very interesting with teenagers, because they're not real little anymore, but they're not really grown up anymore. So they're in that in-between stage. And a lot of times we'll think, oh, they're teenagers, we could just let them be. No, being around or having positive role models. So don't ever think you have to do it by yourself. Get that support team, because brain development for teenagers is just as important as when they were younger. So parts of the brain that controls impulses and plan ahead are still developing. Okay, teen brains respond more strongly to emotional situations. If you notice, you can say something to some of your teenagers and they just, it's just their emotions are all over the place. And you may look like, wow, you're reacting that way. But you got to remember, their brain is developing. Their body hormones are all over the place. So a lot of times they don't even understand what's going on. And that's what it actually says in the third bullet here. Reproductive and stress hormones are influencing the brain. So the teenagers, like, sometimes you may even ask them, those who have teenagers, you may even say, what's wrong? And their response is, I don't know. Because really, they don't know. They're trying to figure out what's going on. with, the brains things and the body things. So, we have to be patient on both sides. The children need to be patient. The parents need to be patient. Changing of sleeping patterns. So their sleeping patterns may change. It's still important that they get enough sleep. Okay. They probably like, well, no, I want to stay up to 1 or 2. No, because if it's a school day, there's no way you're going to function in school properly if you are not getting enough sleep. So it's very important, not only for children, it's important for us. Risky decision making. Again, that brain is not fully developed. So they may just make very risky decisions. So we have to sometimes be the person and say, okay, let's think about it.
Okay, help your build a better brain for teens. Talk to your teen about alcohol use. Don't think that, oh, they know. Don't guess, please. Talk to your kids about alcohol use. Help teens make goals and plans for the future. Guide them, your teens still need you. You are a big factor in their lives. Be a good role model for them. And I say that like if we model good things for our kids, they're gonna copy us, Talk to teens about their values, opinions, and belief. That's very important for them to be grounded and feeling strong and making the right decision in their future. Set clear rules and expectation. And that comes through communication with your children. Listen to your teens. Always listen to your kids. Don't let your teens go to somebody else when they have a problem. Be the most important and the most comfortable person they are with. Be there for your kids. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we want to wrap it up because we want to honor your time. So we want you to kind of remember this week going forward. To remember, the brain is not fully developed until early adulthood. So actually, the brain is not fully developed until around the age of 25. Okay. A person's brain development is shaped by genetics and environment and experiences. So what they've been through in life, that's how their brain is developed. And always remember, it can be changed. A healthy, supportive, and responsive relationship with an adult makes a profound difference in brain development. So those positive things, changing the environment, changing the language, having that growth mindset. Parents and caregivers should consider brain development when reacting to their child's behavior. So think about, okay, how am I going to react to what's going on? So it's always good to kind of pre-think sometime. Okay, you can't do it all the time, but kind of thinking, okay, how will I react if certain situations come up? Parents and caregivers should think about their child's developmental stage when creating age-appropriate expectations. So always remember what age your child is and what's appropriate for them, okay? So we think, we are so glad that you came. If you want to kind of write anything, little comments or whatever, we'll make sure that we read them. And we want to thank you so much for coming tonight.